Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in another episode, another subject, another speaker I have today in my podcast. Those who are watching, thanks for tuning in. So today I have an opportunity to bring an old friend of mine. So those who are watching this time is going to be even more interesting. So we have someone from AWS Cloud Computing. So I have Shijaz Abdullah from me. He is tuning in from Dubai. I know him for a long time. We were just talking about, and from Shijaz, we will explore about the AWS. And also, good thing is that he spent pretty much 8 years at Microsoft. So stay tuned. There's a lot of exciting stuff. Don't go away. I'll have Shijaz to introduce himself. Over to you, Shijaz.
Thanks, Adnan, for having me. So yeah, my name is Shijaz Abdullah. I am the worldwide leader for solution architecture at AWS for the end user computing business. I've been with Amazon Web Services for 6 years. In fact, I actually celebrated my 6th anniversary at AWS just last week.
Nice.
It's really exciting to be at AWS and in the cloud industry. And it's been an interesting journey. So yeah, been with AWS for 6 years. I've done various different roles at AWS, and we can talk a bit about that. Prior to AWS, I used to work at Microsoft for 8 years. And before that, I used to work for various different organizations, including a higher education entity in the United Arab Emirates. I also worked for some consulting companies as well. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations. And as I said, we'll cover so many of these topics. So again, people like you who come on this forum are the example from the field. So first I wanted to start with, tell us a little bit about your existing role. What do you do at AWS?
So as the worldwide leader for solution architecture for AWS's end user computing business, I lead teams of solution architects across the world who help our customers build innovative solutions on the cloud using AWS end user computing services. So what are AWS end user computing services? These are services like Amazon AppStream and Amazon Workspaces. With these services, we provide managed desktop as a service on the cloud native desktops, and application streaming services. So we've got, and Amazon Web Services has been doing end user computing for over 9 years, helping customers run their production workloads, tens of thousands of active customers with hundreds of thousands of active users. AWS as a company has been around since 2006, as you all know. And, by far we are the cloud service provider that has the most experience, the most capability, the most security, and the most features as well. And, it is just an exciting, place to work. More than happy to share more with what you'd like to learn, man.
I would like to cover from the businesses, right? So you mentioned about managed desktop. So how these type of solution help a business, why would they consider such type of solution? How this solution help them?
So first of all, with managed desktop services or cloud native desktop and application streaming services, customers can remove a lot of heavy lifting that comes with managing desktops, distributing them to users, the logistics behind that, securing them, maintaining images, for example, and, patching them and all that, the admin that goes behind delivering desktops, we remove that. And with application streaming, we take it a notch further, right? You're not really dealing with desktops when you talk about application streaming. You're dealing with applications. You're making these applications available. You stream them to the user on any device that they want to use over the internet. They can actually, bring their own devices. They access the application securely. We stream the applications to them. That's what application streaming services like AppStream does. We've got customers like Samsung Engineering, Fox, SolidWorks, Design, Autodesk, Esri in Australia, and many others who use our services. There are various different use cases that we see with some of these services. Customers like Siemens and Aviva, and SolidWorks, for example, they use these services for 3D applications, CAD and CAM applications, because we've got GPU enabled instances, right, for some of our services. And we've also seen customers like IHS Market, who offer their SaaS solutions using AppStream. So the fastest way to simplify your application is probably not to rewrite the application for SaaS, but to just present it through or distribute it through application streaming, right? So your application, you maintain the application centrally on the cloud, you stream the application to the users, they access it on a browser. It is SaaS, right? You're delivering a managed experience for your end users. So we've seen various different use cases. Yes, classic VDI is also one of the use cases. We see that. but it's way beyond VDI and desktops, right? When it comes to end user computing.
So I want to explore more on that. So manage VD, as you mentioned. So basically, I know this is a pain for the businesses to manage different operating system, or if they have a same operating system, then builds are different. So that's one of those challenge.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the protection, EDR and all endpoints. So I believe these machines come with the native protections there. So customer do not have to worry about that if they need to deploy the virtual desktop environment for 500 desktop. There you go. They go
Yeah.
for the
And
service.
yeah, the agility that it brings, as you said, spot on. It helps you deploy quickly. It helps you manage better. It helps you secure better. So, and it brings a lot of agility, right? Imagine deploying 1,000 desktops, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you harness the power of cloud. You get a managed experience. Your end users are happy, and you meet them where they are, right? You distribute your desktops or your applications to any device wherever they are located on the planet, right? So
Yeah.
it is an unmatched experience that you can that we provide with the cloud.
So yeah, so if a company wants to move, they can just focus on the business with a solution like this. Not only it helps their how with the managed desktop, but administrative cost is less. At the same time, system is agile, is scalable, is reliable. So in no time they can just deploy this. So this is really good. And of course, we'll talk about later those who are watching, how does it help you transition for the jobs, but I'll cover that piece later in the talk. So let's talk about application streaming. I want to dig more into that. You mentioned a lot of examples. So are there any specific example you wanted to share?
Yeah, you touched upon graphics, graphics workloads, right? That's an interesting area that a lot of customers use AppStream for. We have graphics. So as you mentioned, right, GPU backed instances, to providing those on desktops. Yes, it comes with its own, overhead and cost and everything. On AWS, we've got graphics design instances for AppStream, right? And they're ideal for delivering applications like, 3D applications, graphics intensive applications, things like Autodesk, right? Applications or Siemens NX, Adobe Premiere Pro, right? These things, these applications that rely on hardware acceleration, such as OpenGL, OpenCL, or DirectX, they perform very well with graphics design instances, right? So you've got GPUs that are powered by AMD technology. We've got the graphic G4PN instances that are based on the EC2 G4 family. They deliver, you know, one of the most cost-effective and versatile GPU instances available in the industry today, and that's what powers, some of the AppStream instances, right? So when customers want, to provide access to their 3D applications to their end users, for various job types or user personas where they have to interact with CAD applications, CAM applications, you know, AppStream is a fantastic solution. And again, you're streaming the application to the users. You're not giving them, and in most cases, you want to give access to one or two applications, a small number of applications. You don't really want to give them a full desktop experience. If you choose to do that, if you want to get a full desktop experience, fully persistent desktop experience, you've got Amazon Workspaces that does that. But quite often we've seen users, customers, they want to stream set a small number of applications to users and they want to meet a certain criteria, like in the case of graphics applications, right? They want higher capability than the user's desktop has. So they can use AppStream and stream that application to the user. When we say streaming, what's happening is actually just streaming the pixels to the user, right? So they're actually, the instances on the cloud, it's got the GPUs on the cloud, they're actually accessing that from their device, whatever that device may be, right? And we've got clients, AppStream clients for various different device types, they can access it from the browser. So that's basically in a nutshell what customers do. And as I said, there are customers that, for example, customers like Aviva, customers like Siemens, they have their NX platform, which is a 3D application, right? Aviva also has 3D applications that they're hosting on AWS. Autodesk is a customer as well. They've got, obviously, when it comes to Autodesk, you definitely know that which, but they've got not to do graphics. So these are some of the customers, what they do with graphics instances when it comes to app streaming. We've also seen mapping and spatial analytics done by Esri, right? With their GIS platform in Australia, they are actually hosting on AppStream. So we've got various different customers doing really interesting and innovative use cases on both AppStream as well as Amazon Workspaces.
No, this is very interesting. Yeah, this is one of the areas usually when you're talking about, I was like, okay, there are many different ways of companies coming with those business cases are using that. So you mentioned, so apps, their underlying infrastructure, they don't have to manage, they just manage an application layer. And however, but then again, you also mentioned it's also one of those things, if they what kind of experience they want to give it to, because there will be a cost associated with that, right? How far you want to, right? Because at the end of the day, it's consuming all the compute.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing. They've got multiple instance types, right? So we know that it's not a one size fits all, right? For certain applications, you need the GPU and sometimes you don't, right? So depending upon what you need, you can use various different instance types on AWS, right? We've got different bundles, like the general purpose one, the compute optimized one. We've got a graphics design one, which I mentioned. We've got a graphics pro one, which is even better. And then we've got a memory optimized one. So you can choose the right instances, and they're all priced differently. So you can actually pay for what you really need. So if you don't need, a high end instance backed AppStream instance, you can actually go for something, that's more general purpose. So you have that option, and basically you can actually control the cost based on what you need. So it helps you with that. There's also cost savings, right? We often talk about cost and how much it costs, but there's also the savings that comes with it. When you simplify application management, believe me, that is a big part of, your operating cost of your IT estate. With AppStream 2.0, you can quickly and easily install and test your applications. We've got an image builder that helps you do that. Any application that runs pretty much on Windows Server or on Amazon Linux is actually supported. You don't really need to make any modifications, and that's one of the things that appeal to our customers who want to SaaSify their application, right? But when you think SaaS, and let's say you've got this application that's a thick client that runs on Windows, and then you want to all of a sudden SaaSify it and provide it on a pay-as-you-go model to your users. First thing you'll do is you'll try to convert that application. You try to port it into a SaaS model. You'll try to, you start thinking about microservices and all that. It is the right approach, but it takes a while for you to get to that. But with AppStream, you can actually offer that application. What is a SaaS solution? You're offering an application in a managed environment. People can access it wherever they are. They don't have to install anything. And it's completely managed by the software vendor, right? And you can actually SaaSify your applications without any code changes just by using AppStream. And that's another use case that a lot of customers find a lot of value in. So yes, when we talk about costs, it's about having the right kind of capability, paying for what you need versus, and having the option, the flexibility, the choice. But on the other hand, it's also about lowering your overall cost that you would have in the absence of these technologies. So I think that's the way to look at it when we balance that.
Yeah. So there are two things I'm looking at, right? So one of them, of course, you and your team help them assess it and help them with the right solution. And at the end of the day, they have to decide what they're looking for. Second, but at the same time, spot on as you just mentioned, there is cost saving as well. Because if a company wants to deploy something within 3 months, there you go. You have the infrastructure available, everything. If today you have to place an order for firewalls or hardware infrastructure for 500 server, for example, it may take 6 months. Your business can't wait.
Yeah.
So if you have to have a faster deployment, things up and running, cloud is the way to go, and all these things there, right? So this is where it saves the money. And in the previous example, I was mentioning the similar baseline of operating system. It's a headache. It's not in
Yeah,
the
it is.
cloud.
It is. Everything that goes towards managing it and managing. You just mentioned a very important point of getting this, implementing it, right? Implementation is one part of it. Getting all this up, getting the firewalls, getting the plumbing and all that, that's
Yeah,
one part of it, and that's cost. And then, there's obviously the maintenance and the management,
exactly.
maintaining that, and pushing that and troubleshooting and all that, and desktops and the life cycle that goes behind it and everything. And then there's also the scaling element of it, right? The
Oh, yes.
scaling element of, with AppStream, for example, we've got, auto scaling fleets, right? Fleet auto scaling, basically. We've got, always on and on demand options, right? Fleets where you can use auto scaling policies. So you can define a policy and you can adjust the number of instances that are running behind that application that you're streaming, right? So you can reduce your streaming costs based on your actual use, right? You can actually auto scale the streaming instances for AppStream. So if you've got a lot of users who need to access this application via AppStream, you can scale up, and then you scale down, the instances that are supporting basically the fleet, right? That's actually supporting the streaming. So it's not just about, yes, there is the guesswork and the complexity around deployment. That is the, complexity around maintaining this stuff. And there's also the complexity around thinking about scaling and, and unpredictable kind of behavior for the applications, that sometimes you have to deal with. And the cloud really helps you with that. The AWS end user computing services help you with those events.
These are the all good points, because once you have the product and everything operationalized, the area cost to maintain is. And scalability is a big, I've seen those, you have seen those. After 3 years, you either have to upgrade the hardware infrastructure or you're running out of space, storage and all those. And that takes a lot of effort, time, energy, and of course the money. So it's not about saving the money. It's about peace of mind. It's about automation and managing ongoing maintenance. That's another piece. And you mentioned about, like I was looking at, I know you used to be a very Microsoft guy. So you spent a ton of good time, like 6, 8 years in Microsoft. Now you're in AWS for pretty much 6 plus years. So I'm interested. I also like people to know, about this journey and, the cloud and these companies. So talk us more when you were there and now you're at AWS. So I wanted to know about.
Yeah, sure, Abdullah. So yeah, so at Microsoft, yeah, I've been with Microsoft for what 8 years. I did various different roles. All of it was in the Middle East, various various countries. I started off, as a technology advisor, some partners at technology, moved to a solution specialist role, helping sell virtualization and private cloud kind of solutions. And then Azure came along, like some kind of Azure. I became an Azure specialist. When I left Microsoft, I was a principal solution specialist for Azure. So I was working with customers in the Middle East region, some of Microsoft's top customers at that time in the region on Azure solutions. But I kind of hit that, I had quite a bit of a journey at Microsoft, right? Learned a lot, kind of reached that that point. And then I had this curiosity and interest to understand a bit more on other solutions that's available, right? Because when I started working on the cloud, I started looking at other cloud offerings that were available at the time. And this was interesting, right? Obviously, AWS has been around longer. And as a technologist, right, you want to work with some of that, interesting features and capabilities, right? AWS today has 200 plus services and a lot of features within those services too. And they're innovating at a very fast clip, right? 3,300 plus new capabilities. We just launched just in the last 1 year, right? So every year, there's new capabilities coming out. And as a passionate technologist that I am, right, I want to always work with the latest and latest. Right? That was the first thing that drew me to AWS. And at that time, this was actively recruiting for their public sector team in the Middle East. So I was hired as the first solution architect for public sector in the Middle East and North Africa region. Right? I was the first solution architect to get hired. I joined AWS and I found a very interesting culture, right? Very interesting culture. And that's one of the things that I really love about this company, right? Guided by the leadership principles that we have, you find everybody around you is really smart and really, you learn a lot from your peers. You learn a lot from your leaders. You also learn a lot from the people who work for you, right? And this incredible wealth of knowledge in this company, and everybody's so switched on. Everybody dives deep. Everybody has tremendous bias for action, right? You know, it's a company that moves fast, right? And it's kind of like working for a startup, but it's a very large startup. Right? You kind of get that feeling. And yeah, so grew a lot at AWS too, right? So I came in AWS as a solution architect. I was based in Bahrain. At that time, AWS building out a region in Bahrain. They're putting infrastructure into the country. And I was helping, with the solution architect stuff. But at the same time, I was recruiting a team as well, right? And then it became two solution architects, it became three. And before you knew it, I was leading the solution architecture team for AWS public sector in the Middle East and North Africa. The team grew so much that I had to hire a couple of managers and to help me, with that scale that we were going through. I learned a lot. AWS invested in me. AWS invested in my managerial skills, in my leadership skills, a lot of good training. And again, going with that learn and be curious mindset, right? And if you put that together with the enablement that you get in the company and the great leaders that you can, get mentored by, it helped me grow. About 5 years in, leading as the head of solution architecture for the Middle East and North Africa, I decided to do something different, right? Started looking EMEA, and then I moved to the worldwide specialist organization for end user compute. And I started leading the EMEA team. And last year I had the opportunity to actually lead the worldwide team for end user compute at AWS. So I think it's been a great journey. I've enjoyed every step of that. I'm really excited at some of the things that we are building for our customers and some of the new service capabilities that are coming out, every day from our service teams. And I'm really excited to be at the forefront of that. And I think it's a great place to work. It's a place where you can grow if you really put your mind to it and you put your heart to it. And, it's overall a great place to work.
So again, good to know, good to hear about your journey and how important the culture is. This is again, if you want to be looking for a long-term in an organization, that's helpful. So let's move on to the next topic. So let's talk about people have been reaching out to me all the time. How does it help somebody who's in the industry for the last 5 years and they want to transition? And, just shed some light around that area.
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes to careers in the cloud, right, or careers in cloud computing, and I'll speak about it from an AWS perspective
Sure,
because
sure,
that
absolutely.
that
Let me
okay.
rephrase
So
that.
yeah,
Let me rephrase that. How to become a AWS cloud architect or AWS cloud engineer?
yeah. So there's no silver bullet to it, right? Obviously,
Yes.
there's one and various different people follow different paths to get to where they want to. And there are multiple destinations as well. The cloud has become a very vast topic in itself, right? And there's a lot of specializations in it too. And I think the first thing is to understand where you want to be. You kind of need to know what interests you and where the opportunity is, and what's the kind of opportunities that you want to work on, right? What's the kind of career opportunities and kind of projects that you want to work on, and what drives you, right? What are you passionate about? So and all, but sometimes you also need to look at what skill sets you already have and how can you build on top of it. So that's also another element, right? People look at all these various different aspects when they consider a career in the cloud. And as I said, there's multiple different things that you could do in the cloud, right? So we've seen, folks who are developers, they're bringing their, development experience and they become DevOps engineers on the cloud, or they actually develop applications on the cloud with serverless, you know, and using and some of the other capabilities that we have at AWS, we've seen people who work with data and analytics, right, bringing in some of that the knowledge that they have, and then they specialize in that field when it comes to cloud. We've seen people who are infrastructure professionals. They're really good at networking. They're really good at you know storage and compute, and they bring that knowledge in, and they start adapting that knowledge and building on top of that knowledge so that they understand concepts like VPCs, how remote connectivity works in the cloud. How do you stitch together various networks? How do you connect with on-prem and all that, securing it again from a storage perspective, right? The different kinds of storage that we have in the cloud. It's a little different from on-prem. I mean, if you work with SAN and if you work with storage,
Yeah.
on-prem, yes, you can definitely bring some of that knowledge, but you kind of need to bring some of that gap and understand how S3 works and how, file systems work on the cloud, right? And how other storage services work on the cloud. So that is a bridge, and obviously you bring some of the knowledge that you already have, you bridge some of the gaps, and then you become experts on cloud technology. Thankfully, there's a lot of courses available, both from AWS and from third parties, right? You go to Udemy, you find a lot of courses, fantastic, instructors over there. And you also find a lot of AWS training and certification materials if you come to our website. And, there are courses and classroom net trainings that help you get to that. But my advice is also to kind of, look for those projects yourself, right? Learning things on a video and from a course is one thing. Yes, you take that theoretical knowledge. It might prepare you for a certification, an entry level certification or an associate level certification. But again, the concepts that you learn get firmly grounded and internalized when you actually apply them in real world use cases, right? So if you work for an organization that's making the first steps to the cloud, or they are already in the cloud in an advanced, in a more advanced setting, I would encourage you to pursue those projects or to be part of those projects, right? Maybe it's a stretch engagement for you, right? Maybe you speak to your manager and, kind of get into one of those stretch projects where you're working with the cloud. That will help you actually, put your learning into practice and see how those two meet, how real world situations influence your architectural decisions, for example. How do you optimize? How for cost? How do you secure, right? So you start applying slowly the things that you've learned in response to real world parameters. And I think that's really critical, right? So that's all the advice that I give, in addition to just learning and reading about it and trying out things in your own sandbox. If there is an opportunity to actually be a part of a team that does something on the cloud, or launch your own pet project on the cloud too, right? That's fine as well. But do something hands-on, as you get to the cloud. From a certification point of view, we've got different categories of certifications, right? But in AWS, we've got the cloud practitioner certification, and that's the most basic one, right? That's where you start, cloud practitioner. It doesn't require you to have any background, right? You can start really fresh, right? Even if you have zero cloud background and very limited, IT background, you can still, learn and become a cloud practitioner. And then the next step, the next kind of, more complex one is the associate certifications. Associate certifications are for people, even if you don't have much experience on the cloud, but you have some experience on-prem or, some with legacy kind of data centers and stuff, you can actually bridge some of that, and you can actually get associate certified. But once you get associate certified, right, and assuming that you didn't have any cloud experience, right, really hands-on cloud experience, that's the time when you really have to start, building some of that experience. We normally recommend the professional certifications for people who have at least 2 years of hands-on experience on cloud, on AWS cloud, right? That's when, we recommend that you go for the cloud, the proficiency certification, right? So that's where some of the stuff I mentioned, try to get hands-on as much as you can comes into play. And for professionals who have done the AWS professional certifications, what's the next step, right? That's like a very pro certificate. That's like, that's a very advanced certification. What do you do next? You specialize, right? And that goes to the beginning of what I told, when I started answering the question, is that there's various different things you can do on the cloud, right? You can be an expert on security, you can be an expert on machine learning, for example. There are various different specializations. And we've got specialty certifications as well, specialization sort of certifications, which go very deep into one particular area, like machine learning stuff or network, right? So when you have gathered enough experience and you want to kind of get the accreditation and put your knowledge to the test, to see if you are ready for a AWS specialty certification, that's the time when you actually go specialize and you attempt those exams and you get the credentials. So I hope that kind of
Yeah.
addresses,
So
there you go.
I
Yeah.
keep hearing a lot on certifications. So how much this is important, like for somebody who has, let's say, 5 years experiences. But regardless, let's say, put it this way,
Yeah.
like how important these certifications are for somebody to apply to AWS.
Yeah. I think so. Before we go to apply to the AWS part, like how important are certifications, right? Certifications are an accreditation of your skill, right? So if you have the experience that you say you have and the knowledge that you say you have, the certification attests to that, right? So you've put your knowledge and your experience to test, and you got the certificate, right? So that's the way to look at it, right? So first thing you need to have is the knowledge and the certificate and the experience, and then comes the certification, right? So that's very important, right? So just what I've seen in some cases is that people just focus so much on the certification that even if they don't have a lot of real-world experience, they just go, and it's not impossible, right? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough without real world experience to pass. And these tests are incredibly tough, and they get tougher. And this is my personal opinion. They get tougher year by year, right? Because I re-certify myself, and I find that it's just because of a pace of innovation, right? I mean, AWS is, innovating at an alarming pace, and that's good for the industry. That's good for for our customers. Just last year we launched more than 3,300 new capabilities just in 1 year, right? Just last year. So obviously the knowledge, that the kind of the pace of innovation is really at that leading edge. And obviously the certification also get updated, so there's new things to learn about, right? As our technology advances. So the certifications also kind of progress. So my biggest advice for people is that don't just focus on the certification. That is not the destination, right? Build the knowledge, build the real world expertise, and then use the certification to prove that you actually know what you know, right? So that's the way to look at it. That's the first thing. Now, to answer the question that you had, right? How important is this for jobs? I think I'll go back to the same answer, right? It is actually an attestation that you know what you know, right? So that's one thing. And obviously, at AWS, when I interview candidates or people in my management team, when they interview candidates or even, solution architects, we have a very elaborate hiring process. We insist on very high standards when we hire people. We do look at certifications. Yes, it's an important element, but we don't automatically disqualify people just because they don't have the certification. Right? And also if they have a certification, that doesn't mean we automatically assume that they so we have our processes, and I'm sure a lot of companies do the same thing, right? It's certifications, right? So it's good to have that on a CV. It shows the accreditation that you know what you know, and then obviously when you come to the interviews, some of that knowledge will be tested, right? So and that's how that's part of the evaluation of candidates as well, and that's part of the hiring process too, right? So you get questions on the technology and on the technical discussion.
Fair enough. Now, you made a good point that you do not disqualify somebody who's not having certification if they have industry experience and what they write in the resume, and if they are able to speak to it, if they're able to deliver those, that's the big one. And of course, certification would help eventually. It's an attestation
Yeah.
process.
I mean, I don't want to downplay that, right? Certifications are important because as a hiring manager, when you see, when you receive a CV and there's an AWS certification already there, you're like, okay, this person has worked in AWS for like 10. Let's see
Right.
how much they know. That's a different story, but you know, it gets you in, right? It actually has that, that's a badge that comes into your, in your CV. So as a hiring manager, when I look at it, I see person certified. Obviously that places some, that places some importance for that candidate, right? You need to talk to this candidate, right? So it helps you get a foot in the door. It's important. And obviously, if you know what you know, then that's a very good, it's a very good, nice to have on your, in your CV. And it also helps you, throughout the process because you're already certified, right? Every solution architect at AWS who is employed at AWS is required to certify and recertify when it expires, right? So every solution architect as part of the KPIs to be certified, right? So yeah, so certification is very important for us. But again, do we like not talk to somebody just because they don't have a certification? No, that's not true either. But it's a very important, nice to have, or almost a must have kind of a thing. When we look at candidates.
Make it even more simpler for the audience. If you have two resumes, identical, one with the certification, one without certification, tell me, who would you call for the interview first?
Depends on what else is on the CV. It depends on their experience, many
That's
other
very
factors,
political.
right?
Yeah.
It
Okay.
depends on many other things, right?
Now, if I say that,
If I,
I'm saying
yeah,
two exactly identical based on the desired job, you get two candidates, maybe not
yeah,
100% same, but 90%
yeah,
or 80% plus. One has the desired certification, one
yeah,
who's not. You
yeah,
may want to call both, of course. You don't, but
yeah.
who would you pick to have an interview first?
It's very hard to make a binary decision on that. Actually telling me that's a condition. Use a high judgment on that. But look, not everybody who we interview makes it in the end. So obviously, we talk to multiple candidates for every
Right.
every job open, right? So if the experience matches, if the skill sets match, if what they bring to the table, if we believe that the candidate has some strengths that they're going to bring to AWS and to our community and to our customers, we might actually speak to both of them, right? I mean, so it all depends on how good they are a match for AWS. And certification is one of the things that we look at, and there are other things we look at too. Experience, the kind of work that they've done, the kind of projects that they've been engaged in, all these other things too.
No, fair enough. Absolutely. That's the honest and fair answer because exactly what do you bring to the table and how this particular position on that particular candidate will help, you know, in the required skill set. That absolutely makes sense. Everything matters, but again, end of the day, what this position is open for what and how this person is going to fill this position is going to help going forward. And if not certified, then as you mentioned, they will be required to become certified.
A lot of
But
people, join, they get certified after they join us, right?
yeah.
You had a lot of people right too every year, right? And they come in and then they get certified. So that happens too.
So very last question here is around for the people who has no experience, career start. I get most all this question all the time also, hey, how do we start? Even I have people reaching out with bachelor's and master's degree. And the only thing they're, hey, we do not have experience. How someone can build the experience, and starting or breaking into the field of sort of cloud engineer.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's that when you're right at the beginning of your career, excuse me, when you're right at the beginning of your career and you're fresh out of college, right? That's kind of a challenge that a lot of people deal with. We're all made for that, right?
Yep.
We're all fresh graduates at some point of time, and then we kind of make it through. But again, and this one again, this is not one thing that has a silver bullet or a formula. It's different for different people, right? But I think what I can leave you with, or leave those people with, is some guiding principles, right? I would say learn and be curious. Always learn and be curious. It's one of our leadership principles at Amazon, right? We have that hunger to learn about things, right? Keep abreast of what's happening in the industry, right? And he's follow a passion, right? Even straight out of college, yes, you have this opportunity to kind of look at the technology landscape, which is very vast, right? And then you can choose the things that you're interested in, right? For some people, it's robotics, right? For some people, it might be machine learning and data and analytics and going in that direction. For some other people, it might be more like they want to get into security, right? And governance and those kind of things. So whatever your passion is, go deep in that. Have that innate curiosity to learn about this, right? And that's the first step, right? When you have that, you're actually feeding yourself with the knowledge. You're learning new things. You're trying out things, right? And at the same time, you're looking for that, for those positions or those learning opportunities that will help you further towards that, right? So once you set yourself on that journey, and when you land yourself in those entry level jobs where you're actually getting closer towards your target, you'll actually start getting a wider picture of what the horizon looks like. And then you might choose to continue in the same direction, or you might actually go in some of the branches of the depths of that area, and then you start specializing. But yeah, I think the key thing to have is that grasp of knowledge, so to speak, being curious about what's happening around you and around the industry, and especially in the areas that you're interested in. I think it's also important, having an overall understanding of many things is good, but I think you can't be an expert on everything. And that's the earlier you realize that, the better too, right? Have a good understanding of most things, but choose to go deep in a few areas, right? That's the way you get really good at something, and you can actually progress.
Yeah. So this is important. And one of the speaker in my previous interview gave me an advice: get the habits of doing, not just, as you also mentioned the same thing, theory and all that, just watching the YouTube and get motivated. It's not going to help you. You have to have the habit of doing it. This is important. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say build and break things, right? Have your own little lab, your own sandbox, AWS account, build things, break things, try things out. But you've got a free
Exactly.
tier, app services you can try out without paying for them, right? Because you've got a free tier. If you go to AWS, AWS.amazon.com/free tier, you know about that, right? And it's a good learning tool for people, right? At the beginning of their career to kind of try out a few things without having to pay a lot for those services.
Yeah. And we did not have that opportunity when we started. We have to build the boxes and buy the hardware. So it's a lot easier to learn. Hundreds of resources available on AWS Learning Digital Skill Channel, or also on the YouTube. We did not have that. So there are so many services, maybe within the SaaS, whichever somebody who wants to learn, you can literally learn for free. So, and then if you understand the process, put those in your resume, this will eventually land you a job. It's much easier, in my opinion, as long as you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think just one more thing that I'd add from my personal experience. And again, it may not be something that everybody would agree with, or doesn't have to be, right. But my own personal experience is that be humble, right? You don't know everything, no matter how experienced you are, and that goes to the both of us too, right? I mean, we've been around for long years now in the industry, but again, there's a lot of things that we don't know either, right? And I think being humble and leading with that sense of humility is key, right? It makes you a better person. It makes, it helps you interact better with others, learn from others. It helps you better absorb the information that you get. It helps you to respect various diverse viewpoints. And I think, it's something that you should have, not just, you should have it obviously at the beginning of your career, but all throughout. I think it's a lifelong trait of good technologists, right? People that I respect and see as good technologists, they're very humble people. And again, don't be afraid to, go a step down to learn something. You'll eventually rise to that occasion where, you know this, you become an expert at it. But don't, and you build something on a firm foundation rather than something that's on a shaky foundation.
Yeah. And if you stop learning, you stop leading. So, Shijaz, I really appreciate it, man. That was so much insightful. And I hope people who's going to watch, I would appreciate if they have any comments, suggestion, let us know. And I'll put some resources. I'll put to Shijaz. I don't know if you're publishing some blog or whichever is available. I'll put those. But again, I appreciate your time, Shijaz. And I hope to see you sometime in the future.
Thank you, Nan. Thanks a lot. And it was great talking to you.
Have a good one. Thank you.